It's Speaking with Gravity, and I'm Curvin, your host. On this podcast, we talk about mental health and how everything affects everything. I'm your son, a brother, a husband, a father, a friend who happens to be a therapist. When you sit with a therapist, the conversation is different, and today the conversation is going to be around astrology. We have with us Lia the Sunstar, and I'm going to allow you, Lia, to introduce yourself and give us a little bit more about you and your background and so on and so forth.
So I'm an empath from birth, and as an empath, I developed certain gifts. So I'm claircognizant, I'm clairsentient, mostly. I also am a medium. All of the women in my mom's side of the family have a gift that most would call a seer.
All right, so you came right into it. You gotta break that down for me. Like, what is an empath and from birth? An empath from birth. Like, I'm completely lost from the beginning. What is that?
Wait, let me finish, and then I'll come back and explain all those things.
I got you.
I am a sixth generation herbalist, and I am a second generation astrologer. So what that means is that there are women in my family before me that were herbalists that practiced herbalism, and then my mom was an astrologer.
Okay.
So as an empath is someone who feels other people's emotions.
Okay.
Typically empaths have certain traits about them. And then usually most of us come into the world with some type of stress. Like either the birth of us was stress or how we came into be with stress. Like my mom almost died when I was born. She had a horrific delivery, and she didn't even know she was pregnant with me until I started moving. They told her I was a gallstone. So it's almost like sometimes the universe tries to suppress some of us from coming here. But we are people who feel other people's emotions very strongly. And then you develop certain gifts, and we like to call them the 5 clairs. Okay. So claircognizant, clairsentient, clairvoyance, clairaudio, and claircognizance. So I'll have to break those down for you. So one is a clear knowing, a clear smell, clear feeling, clear hearing, and clear seeing.
All right, so
that's what all the clairs mean.
What is it safe to say when you were talking about you being what generation astrologist?
Second generation.
Second generation. So if I asked you what got you into astrology, is it just by nature you were into it, or was it something else?
No, my mom literally gave me a book. Like, I was around the house, and I was one of those inquisitive, very intellectual children. Mm-hmm. So my dad started me reading encyclopedias when I was like 5 or 6.
Okay.
And so my mom had this red book. It was kind of tattered, and I would always see it like close to where she was sitting. So I just inquisitively asked her one day, "Hey, what's this?" And it was a book on astrology. And I started reading it, and it became my book. And I began understanding and studying it.
And how old were you at that time?
6 or 7.
Okay. So do astrology itself give you like more insight or more of a blueprint of just people, different people, or even yourself?
So astronomy is the study of the planets.
Okay.
So that is a clear science. It is a science.
Okay.
Astrology is a pseudoscience. So basically, astrologers take what has already been known by astronomers, which again is certain elements of the planets. Like Earth has 1 moon. There's only 1 sun. But did you know that Jupiter has like 74 moons?
No, I did not know that.
So it's a clear,
never studied Jupiter.
So these planets that we have, I always tell people when they say like, "Oh, that stuff is from the devil," and I'll be like, "Well, is medicine from the devil?" Because if you understand that God created everything, he created the plants, he created the planets, the stars, the galaxy, the universe. Doctors, pharmacists, let's take it pharmacists. Pharmacists study drugs. How are the drugs made? From plants. Where do the plants come from? God. God didn't create aspirin, but he created the plants to go in the aspirin, right? Or that they use, like genetically modified, right?
Right.
So God created the universe, the planets. He put us here to study these things that he created. So astrologers take what astronomers have already studied, the movement of the planets, how the planets are moving. And there are astronomers still today, right, that actually takes telescopes and look up in the sky. Astrology is a branch of astronomy, but it's in knowing where the planets were aligned when a person comes into being. So we are spiritual beings. We come into a human form. When we come into this human form, that is our birth. So taking the information of our birth, when we actually were born, our birth time, our birthplace, the city and location, you can actually figure out where the planets were aligned and where the stars were aligned and where the asteroids were aligned when you came into being.
So, like, with what you're saying, how do I take all that information about where everything was aligned and apply it to me and give me, like, a greater self-awareness? How can I take that information and say, okay, this is who I am, or this is what I'm about to be, or this is a good time for me to do this? Because when I read horoscopes, and I'm assuming that's a part of astrology, it says it's a good time to find a relationship, or it's a good time to be aggressive and go after what you want. Something I'm paraphrasing here.
So the planets are always transiting. They're always moving. They don't stay still. So in taking the information from your birth, it will tell you. You ever feel like, okay, my mom and dad are this way, so I can kind of see where I get this from, but then there's some things about yourself that you like, nah, I didn't get that from them. Okay. Clearly. Or they feel this way, but I don't, and this didn't come from my environment or how I was raised. So I like to use astrology, really, to help individuals understand what else that they may not be seeing from their genetic being. So in taking the information, it's a little bit of spiritual and it's a little bit of science put together. So taking that information and breaking it down to help individuals, which is what I do on a regular basis. It's my night job, not my day job. Okay. But what I do on a regular basis is help people uncover what their birth chart is, and even I do relationship compatibilities as well, so that you can take a look at your chart and another person's chart to see how it blends. Because again, this is taking potentially another side of yourself. And I feel like when people know, because genetics is just one thing. Your environment is just one thing. This is another look at a person's profile and what their strengths are and what their growth areas are. And one thing else about astrology is it evolves. So as the planets move and change, yes, like you said, horoscopes. They might say, and this is, and I'm sure this might be one of your questions that come up a lot of times. When the planets move and they transit the different planets from your chart where you were born, yes, it can clearly say this is a good time for you to start a business. This is a good time for you to make an investment. This is a good time for you to get in a relationship. And then sometimes with us, because the planets give off an energy, and that's the other side of it. Planets give off an energy. That's why in astrology, there have been certain zodiac signs linked to the planets. And I'll give you an example. All astrology signs, zodiac signs, all zodiac signs are ruled by an element, and they are ruled by an actual planet. So for example, there are 4 elements that we know of. Typically 5, which is ether, but okay. So you have fire, earth, water, and air. So you have zodiac signs that represent fire, you have zodiac signs that represent water, you have zodiac signs that represent air, and you have zodiac signs that represent earth. And literally, most of those zodiac signs that are represented by those elements actually can actually give off the energy of what you think those elements are.
Okay. You getting so deep. And a part of me, I catch some things and then you'll go on and I won't catch the other things. Like when you say Zodiac, I automatically start thinking about the Zodiac Killer.
No.
When you say ether, I start thinking about Nas. But going back to astrology and the transit, when you were saying the transit of planets, and you said it can lead you to say, this is a good time to make an investment. This is a good time to start a business. How can they know that? Or
It's a
I don't.
science.
I'm not understanding it, because when I started a business, I didn't start it based on what might be good. And how are they gonna know that in this era or this time,
The energy of the planets.
just the energy itself is they just
The
basing it
energy-
off the energy
the
because
en-
of where it's supposed to be at?
Well, you know that the planets have been studied for years.
Okay.
So they do give off a certain energy and they represent a certain thing. So I'll give you an example. Mercury.
Okay.
Mercury is the planet of communication.
Okay.
When Mercury is moving around the Earth's axis like it's supposed to, moving around the axis like it's supposed to, typically, things go the way they're supposed to go. When Mercury decides it's going to take a nap, which it does 3 to 4 times a year, that's what we call Mercury retrograde. Mercury stops moving.
So did Mercury take a nap during the whole 2020 with the political climate that we in?
Well, no, more than Mercury controls the political
okay.
climate. Mercury's the planet of communication, meaning how our airplanes move, how our equipment works, how
Okay.
our cell phones work, how things go when we trying to travel somewhere.
Okay.
Us signing contracts, us buying land, purchasing houses and stuff like that. So when Mercury's retrograde or when Mercury's asleep, not a good time to sign contracts, not a good time to start a business, not a good time. And I would tell most people, you will get into arguments a lot of times, especially if you're in a relationship, your friendships. It is the planet of communication, which means it controls it. Meaning when it's asleep, stuff can go awry. And if you're not, some people, and I'll tell you this, some people who be like, I don't believe that, whatever. Mercury retrogrades happen. I'm going through a breakup. I'm going through a divorce. Me and my wife is arguing. I'm on the couch. And then they'll call me and I'll be like, it is Mercury retrograde. And I could tell you some things that can help protect you. But knowledge is power. Meaning if you know what's going on in the universe, then it doesn't affect you as much because you know how to, one, protect yourself. And you know how to, two, if somebody comes at you and they talking to you crazy, you know how to say, oh yeah, Mercury's asleep right now.
What's the backdrop?
Yeah, they might want to, I give you another example. We had a lot of planets, last year that went retrograde at the same time in 2020. That had not happened in a really long time. A lot of planets went retrograde and were retrograde at the same time, meaning they were asleep at the same time. I'll give you an example. Venus.
So it was like the planets were like at a standstill?
At a standstill.
Okay.
And so it looks like they're moving backwards. That's why they call it retrograde. It looks like they're moving backwards because the axis is still moving, but the planet stops.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it do. I think I'm starting to get some of it. Now, when you were saying that about knowledge is power and just being aware. So earlier you said if charts, there are times where in relationships their charts might not be compatible. So even if a chart isn't compatible, that doesn't mean a relationship don't work. You just need to be cognitive of it.
Yes, it means that you knowing your strengths in a relationship and knowing what areas might be some growth areas, because when you're looking at two people's charts, right? What it says about you may be true, but maybe that was you in your 20s. Maybe that's not you in your 40s. but you've experienced that already. And then sometimes in your chart, it's something where you're going to experience it later on in life. For example, I will put myself on display. The more I got into astrology, you know, from growing up in it and then taking classes and learning it later on, and actually studying different things and getting more knowledge and more information, I learned about my own chart that I should have not gotten married until I was older.
Oh.
And it literally says that about me. Like I would have been better served, because my true relationship, my true love comes later on in life. But that was in my astrological chart, but I wasn't looking at it because I had more studying to do in my field, right? When I was in my 20s. But had I known that when I was younger, I would have waited, because now I'm more of who I am. Versus when I was in my 20s, I was not more of who I am. But some people are meant to get married when they're older. I mean, when they're younger. Yeah. And it's in their astrological chart. It's in their makeup. Your kids are actually in your astrological chart. When you're supposed to get married is in your astrological chart. If you know these things, it can better prepare you. That's why I say knowledge is power. And I'll tell you another interesting fact, because there's more about it. I know people right now, you see all these billion-dollar corporations and all these things, they actually hire astrologers to come in and tell them when's a good time to do stuff. Oh, yeah. I have colleagues that work for law firms and so forth. And literally, you go in, you pull their information, and that's how they get their money. And I'm just being honest. You know, I say knowledge is power because there's some things that people don't think much of, but that doesn't mean that other people who think much of it aren't using it to get ahead.
Right.
And I know plenty of people that use astrology to get ahead.
So these charts that you're talking about, how can somebody become aware of their particular chart? Do they have to reach out to someone such as yourself? Can they do the research on their own?
They can.
Where do they get that from besides Google?
So there are websites actually that you can go and get some free information from. If you're interested in your astrological charts, I would tell people you definitely need your date of birth, your time of birth, and your city of birth. If you don't have those things, your city and state of birth, if you don't have those very basic things, it will be hard for you to get an accurate one.
So if I know my city and I know my date of birth, but I don't know my time. So if I don't know my time, that can throw it off majorly?
Not majorly, but you won't be able to get as many details as you would. And it should be on your, most people, it's on your birth certificate. Yeah, your time of birth is on your birth certificate. So
I ain't think about that, but that's neither here nor there.
So I always tell people.
Then I have to show me up on my podcast.
If you have a birth. Now I have met some people that, like I have a friend that's from Illinois. He does not have his birth certificate does not have his time of birth on it, which is weird because he's 36 years old. Yeah. And most of the time, I don't see birth time for people when they're older. Like if you was born in the 50s or the 60s, it might not have been there, especially if you are of a minority race.
So going back to stick on this relationship, compatibility, if I can ever get the word out. Mm-hmm. What signs are not compatible to each other? Or they're at the opposite ends of each other, or there's no such thing?
I don't feel like it's any such thing. I feel like when you have, so there's different things you look at. So when you're looking at relationship compatibility, there are one sign that everybody says, that knows is your sun sign. So everybody pretty much knows where the sun was when they were born. Meaning like I was born in August. So I was born at the beginning of August. So the sun every year is in the zodiac sign of Leo. Okay. At that point in August, right? Okay. And this is just Western astrology from a Placidus perspective. Now there is Eastern astrology. Eastern astrology is a little bit different than Western astrology, but I'm coming from a Western astrology background, but I have also studied Eastern astrology. which is called Vedic astrology. So in Western astrology, just sticking to that. For sun signs, I always tell people, don't just look at your sun sign if you're looking for relationship compatibility. You want to look at your sun sign, which is important, but you also want to look at your rising sign, which is your ascendant sign. You want to look at your moon sign, your Venus sign, your Mercury sign, and your Mars sign. So again, remember I told you the planets were in a specific position when you came into being, and whoever else came into being on the same day at the same time that you were born. Because you got to think how many people were being born every minute on a date, right? Mm-hmm. So taking all that into consideration, I generally say if you want something general, okay, I'm a fire sign. My element is fire. I'm a Leo. So I typically get along with other fire signs. Other fire signs meaning Aries and Sagittarius. Meaning like I have a lot of Aries and I have a lot of Leo and I have a lot of Sagittarius friends. Now dating wise, looking deeper in my chart, I don't always vibe well with my own kind. not dating, because
is that just you or most people don't get along with their own kind?
It just depends. The way my planets are set up, I always say the way my planets are set up. With my planets are set up, I have a Virgo rising, a Capricorn moon, a Cancer Venus sign, a Scorpio Mars, and then Mercury is in Leo. So what that means about me is that I'm more stable than a lot of fire energy. I have more earth energy because Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn are earth signs. Pisces, Cancers, and Scorpios are water signs. And then Aquarius, Gemini, and Libras are air signs. So I have more earth and water in those things. So when I'm dating somebody, I need somebody who is more stable emotionally, and I need somebody who is also receptive to being nurturing, and I also need someone who is hair long, money long. Me and broke, we don't get along. So I need somebody who can actually.
Where is broke in those signs? Is broke dollar sign somewhere?
No,
in
broke is the Capricorn moon sign. Okay. I don't like to be, most Capricorns. Shout out to all my Capricorns, because we are in Capricorn season right now. If you are a sun, moon, rising Capricorn, a lot of us, I'm sorry, we just really typically good with money, and we don't like not having money ourselves, and we don't like and then we're not so freely. Another thing about me is I'm not so
so I need to put my daughter in charge of the business.
Since
she's a Capricorn.
Oh yeah, she gonna get it.
At 6 years old,
she gonna have y'all straight. No, for real. Start teaching her now, cause she gonna have y'all straight. I will say that for sure. Yeah. No, but I just in general, I like somebody who normally has a good job, because I have a good job, or a career, something stable like that. But I also need somebody who's emotionally mature, and that's where that Cancer comes from. And also that Capricorn, because that stable, that Virgo and Capricorn energy are very stable, grounding energy, because remember, that's earth sign. So when you think about the earth, you think about dirt. It's grounded, it's stable, it's going to support you, right? And if you think about water fluctuates. You put water in a glass, it's going to take on the shape of the glass. Water signs are all over the place. They can be very emotional, and they can be all over the place, meaning
just all over the place.
Yeah, just all over. I mean, they can take the shape of anybody around them. That's the cool thing about water signs. Air signs, they're very logical thinkers, and they can't always make good decisions, or not say make good decisions, but sometimes they can get so in their head that they have so many ideas because they're so intellectual that they're not stable. Air is all over the place, right? You got to think about it. Air just flows. And fire signs, us fire signs, we're very hot tempered.
When I was doing a little bit background research on astrology, I knew this was coming up. I'm literally thinking horoscopes. Now, as you're saying all of this, you have me more interested in my sign.
Okay.
All right. So Sagittarius, give me more of a detailed breakdown of us. And from what I know, my understanding of me as a Sagittarius, I'm stubborn. I am. I've seen or heard somewhere like I have like some issues with commitment. I actually haven't done well in that area. I think I read somewhere where I was good with deadlines, but I might wait until the last minute to complete the deadline, which is an accurate assessment of myself. What else? The other thing I heard, I don't even want to mention it. Give me more of a breakdown.
So Sagittarius as a sun sign, I will say Sagittarius can be very innovative at times. Y'all are the people who will just go for it, like most of the time. Y'all don't like to. Y'all aren't very cautious people in terms of. Y'all like to go very, very. Y'all just like to take chances, and yeah, y'all can commit to one person, but not at a young, super young age. That's probably not gonna happen. Most Sagittarius that I know, you know, they either get married young and, you know, do that for a little while, and then the second half of their life they just free and fancy free and got money in the bank and just doing stuff, or they get married later on in life after they done traveled and lived their life. So you can get either one of those. But one thing I would say about Sagittarius, y'all really like to travel. Even if y'all don't physically do it, you're always daydreaming or thinking about something that you want to do or somewhere you want to go, or you'll be looking like y'all are the adventurers of the fire signs, I like to say. Y'all can be procrastinators, and y'all do not have tact. Some of the famous Sagittarius I can tell you about is Nene Leakes, Nicki Minaj, Tiana Taylor, Jay-Z. These are things like Jay-Z has really chilled in his older years, but think about Jay-Z younger. You know, he was ahead of the dope game. So my thing is, it's like, and y'all are, like I said, y'all are innovative. Y'all are very smart, very smart. Sometimes too smart for your own good. But y'all also, again, like to, y'all are that person at the party that's probably going to try something or do something that nobody else is willing to do.
I don't party.
Or y'all are like the person that really likes to dance, that get the party going. You know, like y'all can be the life of the party and have a lot of energy. What you mean you don't like the party? Hold up now.
See, what had happened was we're going to move on to the fact that your background is social work.
Yes.
And again, as I was doing the research on
it,
I was listening to, I believe it was a podcast, and a young lady was explaining from her perspective in astrology. She was saying, I wrote this down. She said, I'm able to explain to people how they got to where they are, what gifts they have or resources are available to them within or outside of themselves, and what they can expect from certain things. And as she was saying that, I was like, that's therapy in a sense. When you look at astrology, how does it or can it go hand in hand with counseling, therapy? Can people use it in addition to therapy?
Absolutely. So I'm a master level social worker, and I also am I have a master's in computer information systems, and I use these things simultaneously. So
you are master's in computer systems?
Computer information systems.
Okay.
So
and you use psychology,
social work,
computer systems, and astrology together? Wow.
So during my day job, I worked for DFAX for about 13 years, and I left DFAX to go more private. So government is public sector. It's considered public sector in IT. And then, you know, these IT consulting firms such as like PricewaterhouseCoopers, all those different consulting firms, they are considered private sector. So I left to go work for the private sector in May of 2019. and I left the state. So I got involved with the technology side of social work because in every single state there is a Department of Family and Children Services, and they also have to have a computer system that keeps all of the information. So I have become a system expert, not just on child abuse, child welfare, which I have that in my background as well, but I also now help states build systems that can capture the information that they need based off of federal policy, state policy, and county policy actually as well. So that is what I do for my day job now. My evening job is when I use my astrology. So I like to do something called spiritual consultations. And in my spiritual consultations, I definitely use astrology, and I use what a person feels like they're coming to me. So in social work, we do like treatment plans,
Right.
where you help people, where you get information and then you come back and say, these are the resources, and these are the things that, these are the things we're going to work on, basically.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing, but from a spiritual and from astrology perspective. So when a person comes to me and they say, okay, I'm struggling with unforgiveness, I look at their astrological chart, and I also, so I use that in terms of looking at why that might be, why they might be struggling with unforgiveness. Is there something in their chart that's indicative of that, holding on to past things? And also, I will take that and come up with somewhat of a treatment plan, but it's more of spiritual stuff. So it's more of looking at their energy, looking at their chakras, which are our energy points in our bodies, looking at how some type of meditation, crystals, essential oils may be able to help them, or it just might be a part of them accepting a part of who they are. And that is called shadow work. And then there's also inner child work. So these are things that I actually, when I use my spiritual consultations to get to spiritual coaching. Some people feel like they need divination readings, which is my gift that I got from birth from my mom's side of the family that I mentioned earlier. Some people call it mediumship.
Can you explain it? Elaborate on it in layman's terms.
So some people call it mediumship, but even going back to the Bible had prophets and the Bible had seers. So these are people like myself who can see beyond the veil, who can communicate with those that are no longer here with us that have transitioned. That has been a gift that I've had from a child. It used to scare me. Well, I take that back. It didn't used to scare me at first until I started watching TV, right? Because before I started watching TV, I just thought, okay, the man is sitting over there on the ledge talking to me, and then when I don't want to talk to the man no more, I can just say, go away. I don't want to talk to you no more. It became so conceptualized in the media that this is evil. But your Aunt Susie may not be evil. She just may want to get you a message. And that's where I come in. I can communicate across the veil. Do I feel energies and entities? Yes. Do I tell people when their ancestors, because we all have ancestors. Ancestors are those who have transitioned before us that enter in our bloodline. And we got tens of thousands of ancestors going all the way back. So you just never know. Some of your ancestors you may not want to talk to. So that's why whenever I go into this realm, you have to know what you're doing, number one. Number two, if it's your gift, then some of it comes innately. But then some of it you have to be trained on, like how to, if you open the door, how to close the door behind you. Certain stuff like that. So again, in divination, some people use tools, but you don't have to. Like, as far as I am concerned, I don't have to use tools. I can hear. When I said I have clairaudience, I can hear, and I can see. Clairvoyance, I can see, and then I have a clear knowing, which is claircognizant. Sometimes I just know things, and I can give you an example. I knew I was working with an individual last year that was in a situation, and I was doing some coaching with this individual.
Life coaching or just
Spiritual
coaching? Okay. All right.
And so I was working with this person on, at the time, it was a relationship kind of situation. So I do individual coaching and I do couples coaching. And I am a certified lay counselor.
Okay.
So I was working with this couple that was kind of on again, off again. But every time I tapped into the female, I tapped into her energy, and because she wanted me to talk to her ancestors for her. Every time I talked to her ancestors, or I talked to her guardian angels, because we all have guardian angels, and some of us have spirit guides. Spirit guides are people who, like, say you had a godfather or a godparent, and your godparent transitioned. They're not your bloodline, but they can agree to be with you as a spirit guide until you transition yourself. So those are our spirit guides. So typically, we all have guardian angels. We all have ancestors for sure that passed before us. I was in sessions with her, and when I communicated with her ancestors and with her spirit guides, I never saw this guy who she was with child with being in the child's life. I continuously didn't see him there. Now she was like, oh, so he gonna be a part of his other kid's life, but not a part of my kid's life, so forth and so on. Interesting enough, I couldn't tell her why I kept seeing these things and why they kept saying these things to me, but clearly I just kept seeing she wasn't gonna get the support that she needed from this individual with this child that she was then pregnant with. She gave birth to the child, a month ago. And shortly after that, did something else, and I said, well, he's very remorseful because they had not spoken some months. I said, he's very remorseful and he's very tired, very, very tired, like done tired. But for some reason, his energy, I still don't see his energy being around the child, whatever. They're not telling me that. There's certain things, though, that you won't be told. And I've never been told of life or death. But I can see I take that back. I have been told that somebody was going to have a baby or get pregnant, and that has happened. But I've never been told of a death. She found out about a week after I talked to her that the father of her child had passed away the day the child was born. So that, to me, with my gift as a seer, meaning that I'm shown things by the other side because I can go beyond the veil and use that gift. It is never a curse. It is only a gift, but it is a gift that comes with a lot of responsibility.
When you say a lot of responsibility, do you have to wait until somebody give you permission into their life, or you see? Oh, okay, you're not gonna just see it without their permission. Okay.
I see things surrounding my life and surrounding some of the people in my life, and it comes instantly because I have some type of connection with them. Either we're being intimate or it's somebody in my family. But as far as with my clients, I have to get permission to speak with. I can't just do that. The spirit realm is funny like that. You can't go communicate with somebody else's people if you haven't gotten permission from them and then gotten permission from their people. That's one of those things where I said when people, when I watch the people on TV, like the mediums and stuff on TV, I think to myself, how did they get permission? Did they do it off camera? I just think to myself, how do these people just start talking and doing these things? Because when I'm in session with somebody, that's one of the first things I do. If I have to get permission. So, and I rarely, when I'm looking at these TV shows, I don't see people getting permission. So I was like, I don't know who they dealing with. But maybe it's just, the minorities. You can't just come to talk to somebody and flow. They're gonna be like, who is you? I don't want to talk to you.
So like when I'm doing therapy, I'm doing like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. I know you said earlier, sometimes you got to accept things, and I do acceptance commitment therapy. But as a therapist, I try to be aware of a lot of different things, how it affects people, how it influences people, how they understand it from their perspective. So astrology is something that I really haven't dug into a whole lot, other than just to read my horoscope.
Well, you can always refer people to me, and I can give them their charts,
Yeah.
We can always collaborate on that.
Do you collaborate with other therapists? Is that like a thing? And when I say is it a thing, is it something that's done often, or you've seen in that field? I haven't seen it from my end. Other therapists talking about that, but have you seen it?
Yeah, I know a few therapists that are what I like to call open to metaphysical techniques, to. And so I give an example. My own therapist, I always tell people therapists need therapists, right?
Right.
So if
your therapist is not seeing a therapist, then
you shouldn't trust them.
Yeah.
I often say this a lot of times because people feel like you got to be perfect out here in the world to be using your gifts. But being a therapist, being able to counsel people is a gift. I see pastors out here, doing counseling, and I say, no, your gift was to preach. You supposed to be in the pulpit giving a word.
Some of them have to give for counseling too.
Some of them. I haven't met any. I'm sorry. I'm not being funny. I haven't met any. I've met some that have been very good at preaching a sermon. But when it comes to counseling, because I've had a few, that just wasn't, and that's okay. I feel like you have to know what your gifts are, and that's very important. With the people that I see that have a genuine gift for therapy, which my own therapist, she's very into the divine masculine, divine feminine, learning about energy, astrology, all these different things. So when I first sat down with her, I was coming to her for grief because I needed to help dealing with the transition of my father. And I didn't even seek her out for years. So I was walking around for years helping other people, but needing a heart transplant myself, as I say. Because I always tell people, can a cardiologist operate on his own heart? No. He can go to school for years and know how to and perform 50 heart surgeries. But if he have a heart attack tomorrow, he can't operate on himself. So there has to be somebody else that you trust to operate on you, and you have to know that one day you're going to need that help too. Yeah. So in my experience in sitting on the other side of the table, I prefer somebody who is more open to who has a relationship with God, but also that does not put God in a box. Because for me, spirituality is not just in one box. I feel like there are many different boxes. I like to call these boxes religions. And I've studied, and it's interesting because I've studied, whereas some people haven't studied astrology, I have studied many different religions. I have read up on the Quran, the Bible, even the Hindu religion, the Buddhist religion. And to be honest, they all say the same thing a different way. So I always tell people, pick what you desire, but know that God is bigger than just that. And having that one-on-one relationship with God is important. And also knowing that we have all this information and all this knowledge at our fingertips that we can be using. And that's the other important thing, is that sometimes I'll notice like people have something wrong in their body and it's really just an energy block. That the reason why you keep getting strep throat is because you not speaking up for yourself, or there's something in your life that you're not talking about. So in knowing these things, when people come to me and they're like, oh, I keep getting headaches, your third eye is off for some reason, and it could be something physical, and it could be manifesting as a physical body because your energy is off in that point of your body. So I look at stuff across the board, and then coming to my therapist, I'll never forget, I sat down with her the first time, and she was just like, you do know that your divine feminine energy has taken a break, and you are more in your divine masculine energy. And in knowing divine masculine, divine feminine energy, even couples, that's one thing I love to talk about with couples, is knowing, because we all have both in our body, but knowing how to ebb and flow it when you're in a relationship is a whole nother different level. And a lot of us don't get that. Divine masculine energy gives, divine feminine energy receives, and there's more to it than that. But if you always giving, and you never receiving, especially if you're a woman, you are going to be a mess, and you're going to be attracting all the wrong people. And the same thing with a man. If you're always giving, which means you have too much of that divine masculine energy, and you don't know how to allow somebody to nurture you or give to you and have that balance. That's how a lot of people end up in therapy, especially when it comes around relationships.
Which, and if they do, then I'm going to say some of the same things, apparently. How can people find you if they want to get in contact with you?
So I am on Instagram at Lia, Lia _THE _Sunstar, SUNSTAR. I have a email that's the same way, is Lia the Sunstar at gmail.com. And they can go on my IG and they can hit book me, and they can book me right away.
Okay, that's what's up. Again, I'm your host, Kervin Searles. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, on Twitter as well. If you need therapy, or we said something to provoke you to thought, and you need a professional in your particular area, then just reach out to me on any one of those social media platforms, and I'll try to reach back to you and point you into the right direction. Thank you to Winston, Winning Productions. I'm gonna get it right one day. Laverne Cinema, all those who work with me. Thank you to my wife, because she's a great support for me. She allows me to do some of these crazy, innovative things that I come up with, and not just, suppress that and say, nah, you can't do it. Not that I give her permission or anything like that. But thank y'all for taking the time to listen. Y'all could be anywhere in the world, but y'all chose to stay here and listen to me, watch me on YouTube, or either just listening on the podcast, and I appreciate that. Remember, I'm a therapist, but this ain't therapy. It's just a podcast. Till the next time.
Here we go.